Mr. Ambassador, thank you for your time. We're talking as NATO celebrates its 75th anniversary. How does Russia view NATO?
There is a story behind it. You know that in the beginning of 90s, we have tried to establish a relationship with NATO that could be a part of the European architecture. That we were a bit idealistic at that time, and we established partnership relationship with NATO, with European Union, OE plus OSCE, so that could be a really security architecture of Europe. I took part myself in it. I spent 10 years in Brussels doing this. Unfortunately, development has gone different ways. Instead of overall European security architecture, we have got 5 NATO enlargements that have come very close to our border. And when today I am reading that NATO is preparing to establish a fund of 100 billion of euros or dollars, I'm not sure, euros probably, in order to supply armament to Ukraine, then I do understand that really it is absolutely becoming, unfortunately, an adversarial organization to us.
One prominent member is Poland. The Prime Minister, Donald Tusk, has suggested that Europe is in a pre-war era, and that is what Ukraine is partly about. How do you respond?
I would say that it's an extreme exaggeration, absolutely. We have to deal with the problem of Ukraine, because Ukraine has become a sort of a breaking through instrument against Russia. It has been done like that. And the military's war in Ukraine is going on not since 2022, but it has started in 2014 after a coup d'etat in Ukraine and oppression on the Russian population over there. So that's a bit probably a long answer, but the issue is that there is no pre-war situation in Europe. It is a problem between Russia and Ukraine that should be resolved. All the rest is a pure speculation.
Can you give my listeners the assurance there'll be no other military operation by Russia outside of your current borders?
It is not up to me. It is my president who has said it many times.
Is it your belief that there will be no other?
The President Putin has said that we do not have an intention to wage war against NATO or NATO countries.
When the Soviet Union ended in 1991, it created 15 successor states. Ever since then, the President has argued that Ukraine is not legitimate and should not exist, but surely that argument could be made of Georgia or Azerbaijan. So why Ukraine?
Why Ukraine? It's a good question, but I will say that the problem with Ukraine is that extreme nationalism has started to flourish in this country, differently from the others. And it has started in early 90s, right after the dissolution of the Soviet Union. Initially, we were skeptical about that. We did believe that a kind of a childish play, something like that, but it has grown up. And this nationalism extremely has grown up into some Nazi things like that, into oppression of the Russian population and very things that are very difficult to deal with. It was favored by United States and NATO allies, and it has grown up into a big threat to us.
How surprised were you when the Russian military moved into Ukraine?
No, I will say that that no one did want this war, and Mr. Lavrov and President Putin has said that the best way was to avoid it, unfortunately. But the whole situation, to avoid any kind of military operation, to resolve it by peaceful means. But it didn't happen. After 8 years of negotiations, we realized that it is all in vain, absolutely.
But a month prior to the invasion, you were saying there would be no military exercise.
No, it's not for the first time I'm answering this question. I was saying what I was aware of.
So what changed?
What changed? We tried to achieve a negotiated result, and we could have achieved it in April 2002, right, a couple of months after events had started. And we were prepared. We nearly agreed the whole issues on it in one paper, so that Ukraine will be neutral, that Russian population will be treated equally as other nationalities, and all of that stuff. But it has been thrown away by Ukrainians as soon as we, as a gesture of goodwill, we retreated from near Kiev and other western areas of Ukraine that has been under Russian troops.
It started, I think, as a special military operation. It is now, I read, a war. What changed and how will it end?
No, we still call it a special military operation. It is in all papers. You can see it.
The Financial Times says, the Kremlin say it is a state of war. That was last month.
State of war, but not war itself. We still
What's the distinction, Mr. Ambassador?
The difference is has a limited, very limited dimension, an operation. It is still an operation, although it involves more and more, of course. It is.
So it's not a war, it's an operation?
It's an operation, yes. Still, on the part of Ukrainians, it might be called a war, but we, when, of course, the dispute going on, we call it all-out war by NATO against Russia and all that stuff. But in fact, in all official newspapers, in the speeches by the president, it is still special military operation.
Not a state of war?
Not a state, whether it's a state, sometimes we're saying it's a kind of a civil war, which is also right, because we are very close with Ukrainians, with the Russians living over there, they're taking part in it, and sometimes we are calling it as a civil war as well.
If you're close with Ukrainians, why did they not meet you with flowers and embraces and rather bullets and bombs if you're so close?
30 years of so-called independence based on nationalism, of course, changed minds of some of them. Not all of them at all, because we are aware of all moves. But in this state where nationalists are prevailing, and this is a state policy by the government of Zelensky, so of course they have tried to make an adversary out of Russia. I mean, which is absolutely wrong.
Can we talk, how many Russians have been killed or injured in the conflict?
We do not well, I do not want to speculate if there are figures, unofficial and official. We do not produce official figures.
Why? Why would you not give a figure?
No one is doing it. Neither Ukrainian side nor the Russian side are producing official figures because you never speak about your losses.
Okay. The British Ministry of Defence, the US Department of Defence, talks of over 300,000 Russians killed or wounded. I don't expect you to confirm that, but could you respond to that figure?
I think it's a speculation, pure speculation taken from the ceiling, something like what we said, because they cannot comment, they do not a real situation. I'm looking at all the sources that are serious sources that are close to it. No one is confirming it.
Are you winning the
Yes.
special military operation?
We are doing
What
it,
makes you say that?
Well, because in the recent months, that's already started in the autumn, all initiative belongs to the Russian forces. They are moving slowly but steadily all across the 1,200 kilometers line of front. Now they are moving slowly, and because weather does not permit it, but I can imagine that it will be quicker and more serious as soon as it will be drier.
Are you surprised how long the military operation has taken?
It's an unpleasant situation, but we understand that we are now countering forces of NATO, supplies by NATO. It prolongs the conflict, and it is worse for Ukraine, because the longer this will continue, the more ground we will take.
You say it's worse for Ukraine, but they're the ones who are being bombed, of course, and their land being invaded.
Russia is also bombed, and the issue was to save our eastern part of Ukraine populated by the Russians. That was protection for those people. That was the main goal.
But thousands of Ukrainians have been killed with that goal.
Well, you know that in Gaza they have killed 32,000 of Palestinians, and this is much more, but at least 3 times more than civilians in Ukraine.
That makes it better?
It's worse. It is terrible.
Lastly on this, when do you think the military operation will end?
I wish it will end tomorrow, but this is not realistic, I'm afraid.
Do you think?
Because Ukraine is not prepared for the negotiations, and NATO countries, they are coming together today and tomorrow, as I understand, they have no single idea about the future. They speak about new rearmament of Ukraine, which has no other way out but to destroy Ukraine itself.
Okay. Can we talk a little bit about domestic matters? You've had the election of President Putin. David Cameron said the elections underline the depth of repression under President Putin. Antony Blinken, the US Secretary of State, said they occurred in an environment of intense repression of independent voices, and a spokesperson for Olaf Scholz, the German Chancellor, said the vote was predetermined. Mr. Ambassador, was it a fix?
Was it what?
A fix. Was it prearranged? Was it? Were the elections fair?
No. Elections were absolutely fair. In any elections, of course, you can discover some things which are not very pleasant for anybody, but the result of the elections, 87% in favor of Putin, with a turnout of 77%, if I'm not mistaken a bit. The figures, it just shows that our political system is absolutely stable.
But the international condemnation of them, of being almost like a joke, again, how would you respond to that?
Well, you know, I have spent 4 years as ambassador to the OSCE, and I perfectly know that observers by the OSCE are being sent to find black spots, especially in Russia and in Eastern countries. They never find anything bad when they are observing elections in Germany, France. They observed quite a lot of omissions in the United States during the elections. But these omissions, it is a professional failure, I would say, of those observers at all. We do not speak about recognition. I didn't notice any idea of unrecognizing the elections themselves, since it will be silly to think about that after 20 years of being a president, that something may change.
Okay. What level of support for the military operation is there in Russia among everyday Russians?
Polls are saying it is more than 77, 79, something like that. The polls that has been conducted, let us say a couple of months ago, before elections or before the New Year, so it is very high, I will say.
Why was it necessary for some people to be jailed after they had commemorated or tried to celebrate the life of Alexei Navalny?
I never heard that people has gone to jail after celebrating.
This is Moscow City's court service showing 154 people have been given a jail time of up to 14 days for violating...
Sorry.
No, not at all, Mr. Ambassador, apologies. 14 days for violating Russia's strict anti-protest laws. Why was it necessary to jail 154 people?
Some, as far as I heard, has been detained for some time because it was demonstrations should be permitted in our system, differently from the British system, which provides it is notification for a demonstration. We have a system of permissions given to it. If you violate that there is no permission to something, then you violate the law. So that is, it happened, but they have been released pretty quickly.
Right. But of course people were also arrested during the election as well, weren't they?
I didn't hear about that. That elections were, no.
Did you not
any
see
evidence
the
about
video
the
footage?
arrest.
You didn't see the video footage of people being led into vans?
No, I haven't seen. Perhaps, I do not deny that during elections, of course, things were, excuse me, like acts of some people, or no, just a couple of people tried to put some fire to the polling stations, for instance. Some have spoiled, one lady has tried to spoil the bulletin itself. Of course, she had a problem with law doing this, but it was pretty quickly released.
Why is it, do you imagine, that so many of Mr. Putin's opponents seem to meet their ends in strange ways? I apologize for my pronunciation. Kristina Balkova fell to her death from a window from an 11th floor flat. Grigory Klinishov is supposed to have committed suicide in his Moscow apartment. Ayrton Bartanev also fell 12 stories to his death. Pyotr Krochenko fell ill on a flight from Cuba to Russia. I've not even mentioned Alexei Navalny or Prigozhin. Why do you suppose they all meet their fates like that?
Well, out of your list, I know only one name. This is Navalny. All the rest are unfamiliar to me. Navalny has suddenly died.
You don't know Navalny and Prigozhin, and you don't know Yevgeny Prigozhin?
Yevgeny who?
Prigozhin, am I saying that correctly? The one who led the military coup, tried to lead the military.
Yevgeny Prigozhin.
Prigozhin, my apologies.
And what does this?
He was killed in yes. It's just interesting to me that so many people who seem to be against your president meet their end in strange circumstances. I wonder why that might be.
Oh my, Nick, excuse me for my Russian language, but Yevgeny Prigozhin was the first and foremost supporter of Putin. Who told you that he was opposing to him?
Well, I remember the fact that there was that, what should we say, military operation, or we read that it was almost an attempted coup, is what we read in the West, prior to his death, when an aircraft mysteriously exploded.
No, I do not.
I've got that wrong, clearly. What is the reality?
You are mixing here names on the one side of opponents of President Putin and then of supporters. Yevgeny Prigozhin has nothing to do with opponents. He was a strong supporter of President Putin. But his way of doing it, his behavior, was dubious because he has tried to gain profit for his companies, for campaign.
This is the Wagner Group?
In obedience to the military discipline. That was a problem. And how to link it with what has happened, we have no answer. I have no answer to it.
No, okay. And how did Alexei Navalny die, as you understand it?
It was a sudden failure in his health, absolutely, which is possible because that was a difficult time for him. He was sentenced for committing criminal acts, criminal deeds, and he was serving a long term. During serving this, he has done everything to worsen it because he was not obedient to the powers. Same happened here in prisons. If you continue to do systematically violating the conditions that you are serving with, of course, your conditions will be harder and harder. And his days were in the north. And President Putin has said that he was prepared to exchange him for some others. Right. And it was absolutely wrong to think that we have he or something difficult happened, but he simply died. These things happen.
He simply died because, of course, his widow says he was murdered.
What for it is? It's no sense at all.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about Moscow. How safe is it for Russian citizens after the attack on the concert hall?
This attack has I would say, emotionally, it was very difficult to survive because during 20 years we didn't have anything like that. And of course, emotions were very high on it. Services that are responsible now to catch and to deal with that, they are now high alert everywhere in Moscow and the other cities. And we hope, first of all, to prevent other things like that and to investigate it until the very end, to find all those who are responsible for it and who are assisting it. And
who do the Russian security services think was responsible for the outrage?
Investigation is still going on, but as the head of the security service said, traces are going into Ukraine, special services.
You think it was the work of Ukraine?
I don't think anything. I'm just saying.
I'm sorry, the Russian security services think it was the work of Ukraine?
No, he has. No. Well, we have no strong suspicions about that because the special services, Ukrainian special services, has committed now a number of terroristic attacks, and they do recognize that. They have blown up Russian activists inside St. Petersburg, in Russia, and in many other places. They continue to do terroristic activities. And so we have all reasons to suspect that it is traces are leading, as I have said. Traces are leading over there.
Even though the terror organization ISIS has claimed they were responsible.
Well, I have seen this dispatch. It's very shaky. It is not hard and serious. So I do not want to speculate about that. I can only confirm that we continue investigation by all means, and we will find who has done it.
We've talked a lot about your election. Can we talk a little bit about the general election that's coming here in the United Kingdom at some point?
You will call it intervention in internal affairs.
No, I can go there if you want, Mr. Ambassador, but I wasn't. I was initially going to start with the fact that polls currently point to the likelihood of Sir Keir Starmer becoming the Prime Minister.
Who?
Sir Keir Starmer, the Labour
Yes,
leader,
of course, yes.
the British Prime Minister.
Yeah.
How will that be for your relationship with him? Because, of course, prior to the military operation, or at the start of the military operation, he said you should be expelled from the country. How will that be for diplomatic relations?
If he will decide to do this, we will take note of that. It will take note of that. You have also an ambassador in Moscow, so we are always prepared to.
But you would hope to have good relations with Sir Keir Starmer?
I don't believe that we will be able. I have never met him in the first place. I have met some of his accompanying personalities in the past dealing with foreign affairs, but I have never met him. Second is that his policy that has been declared has no difference at all from the policy of conservatives who are now in power. Foreign policy, at least. I do not speak about internal policy because there is not much published about the future economical program, social program, or something like that. But as for foreign policy, it does not deviate at all from the policy of the current government. It means that that the future government will take a hostile position towards Russia.
President Putin has said he thought Joe Biden winning the US election would be better for Russia than his opponent Donald Trump. Why do you suppose that would be, Mr. Ambassador?
It's a good question, but I think that he has said it not to be accused once again about the Russian involvement into U.S. elections. That was the main topic in the previous elections, that Russia is intervening, which we haven't done at all. And after that, as I understand, it is better not to say anything about U.S. elections, otherwise you will be accused once again about intervention.
Well, let me tell you, he said on your broadcast, again, I apologize, Rossiya 1, Biden is a more experienced, predictable person. He's a politician of the old school. So clearly your president favours the US president. Again, why? Those are your president's words.
Yes, I recall that. Yes, he has said that. He really has said that. Probably one reason is that predictability of President Biden and unpredictability of if Trump will become the president.
Okay, we're coming to the end of our time together. Can I ask you, the journalist Ivan Gershkovich has been detained now for over a year. He says that he was innocent, his newspaper does, the US government does. What evidence do you have for his detention?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do have evidences. Mr. Gershkovich has collected classified information in a big city of Yekaterinburg, right in front of one of our defense industry enterprises, and he was catched on the crime scene at the moment. So they have all the evidences.
Can that evidence be published?
I do not know. I have no idea. What kind of evidences can be published if it will happen, but I know that there is very serious allegations, very serious accusations against him.
But you'll know that people get nervous when journalists, if they're doing their job, are detained. It might help Russia's cause if they were able to point to a catalogue of information.
I didn't get the question.
The detail, the evidence, if they could publish the evidence, it would help that?
No, Nick, we with you live long enough on this earth, and we perfectly know that sometimes journalists are being used or they are undercover collecting secret information.
All right, okay. One other allegation, which is an interesting one, is that Russia was in some way responsible for the stories that were put out about the health and condition of the Princess of Wales.
This is very interesting. I have heard about that, and I was amazed, in fact. And I'm afraid to say that probably the British media are now short of accusation against Russia. That's a pity, because they're very inventive recently about accusations, but accusing us about that, that is funny. You can read it on the website of the Russian embassy that we wish to Ms. Kate Middleton all the best and soonest and full recovery.
Why do you suppose these stories keep coming back to Russia?
that is clear because anything it is what is being published here only in the black colors at all. So that is professionally it is right now. You will not find any positive story about Russia in the British newspapers, which is bad.
It's true, because it was also suggested that in some way you tried to block communications with an aircraft taking our Defence Secretary Grant Shapps back from the area as well. Again, these stories are all fabricated.
As we understand, for the sake of economy, Grant Shapps' aircraft did not have any equipment that can counter this kind of things.
Although the number 10 spokesman said it did take place, the Russian jamming or blocking of signals did take place. But again,
if you will talk to the people who understand in military things, you will quickly understand that this kind of jamming is take an entire region and not one aircraft. You cannot target one aircraft with it.
Lastly, you are a diplomat, a career diplomat.
That is true.
Yes, the most appalling incident has happened in Gaza with the Israeli would-appear bombing of 3 aid vehicles as they were trying to get relief to people of Gaza. Can I get your take on that, Mr. Ambassador?
It is true. It is a bit surprising for me that you are asking about only one side of the bombing, and you are not asking about the bombing of the Iranian consular section of the embassy over there, which has been blown up with people killed and with severe damage to ambassadors, as I understand, premises over there, which is absolutely unacceptable in daily life. In diplomatic life, I will say. Of course, we also have a lot of sympathy to those who perished into the attack on humanitarian convoys of this World Kitchen.
Yes, World Kitchen.
Three British has been killed, and our sympathies for that.
What would your message be to Israel?
Israel should stop doing these things. Yes, everybody is calling it for that. It is Security Council resolution is calling now. That includes United States that Israel should immediately stop continuing this war in Gaza and over there, and should come to the creation of 2 Palestinian states.
So they've gone beyond the right to defend themselves, Israel?
I think they have gone far beyond the right to defend themselves, and everybody, including UK and the others, are calling them for immediate cessation of fire and also proceeding with a peace plan.
And your president has communications with Prime Minister Netanyahu?
I think yes.
And he would be
although it is now difficult to see how it comes, since Netanyahu is only even not listening to Washington. I don't know who he is listening to right now, but things are becoming harder and harder over there.
Mr. Ambassador, I'm grateful for your time.
Thank you very much for good questions.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you.